2だっけ、フェード出てやる。1は何だったっけ。1は分からない。
今あんまり元気じゃないね。
つけなかったっけ、この間。レベルだけ増えてるのを確認したのだけか。島さんのとこからいいのかな。何も聞いてないけど。
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the speaker. ちょっとお入ります。
おはようございます。
こちら会社のブースです。はい。クローズアップのお写真撮る方、どうぞ今こちらで撮れますので、お写真撮られますか。こちらでクローズアップのお写真撮れるのでよろしかったらどうぞ。
いいですよね。
あ、喋ってるの。
喋ってるところだけで大丈夫ですか。はい、わかりました。あ、で、
いいですか。
はい、ご検討ください。はい、はい。
使っていいですか。
うちの写真は平気ですか。
Thank you.
はい、お願いします。
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. My name is Azari. I'm a former president of this club, and I have the honor to moderate this event today. Our guest speaker is Mr. Ambassador of the Republic of Uzbekistan, Mr. Mukhsinkhuja Abdurakhmonov, and he will tell us today talk to us about the lifting of the cotton country, and also on the reform, development reform and strategies, and also on other issues you might ask. And Ambassador Karimov has been here, ambassador for about a year, but he studied in Japan earlier, and he speaks very fluent Japanese. And today the press conference will be in English, I guess. And it will be for 1 hour and about half an hour speech, presentation, and that will be followed by the question and answer. Thank you very much. Mr. Please.
It's okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Azhari. And I again greet all the participants here and thank you for taking your time and coming here. As Mr. Azhari told, I'm here for almost 1 year as an ambassador of Uzbekistan, but I've studied at the Otaru Commerce University and Hokkaido University from 1998 to 2004. I was doing there my master's at Otaru and my PhD in economics in Hokudai, in Hokkaido University. So later I was working there, and for a long time I lived in Hokkaido mostly. So this is the first year of experience for me in Tokyo. So I am mostly Dosanko, so to speak, the Hokkaido man. So wherever I go, I try to deliver the message that even though for a long time I've been here in Japan, and Japan became as my second home. So, but still the Hokkaido is the best part of Japan, what I think, because I've seen only Hokkaido mostly. But of course, speaking about my country, as you know, the Uzbekistan became independent in 1991 after the collapse of Soviet Empire. So we became an independent state, and since then, the President Karimov was ruling the country, and of course he created lots of good things in the country. And in 2016, Mr. Mirziyoyev took over, and from 2017, beginning of it was 7th of February, the new government issued strategy actions for 2017 to 2021. For 4 years they made the actions. It was like 5 steps or like 5 different development strategies for the country. And in 2022, these five different strategies were established as a new development strategy for Uzbekistan for 2022-26. So on the base of the 2017 strategies, the new strategy has been created, and I want to give some information about this development strategy first, and then at the end I want to give some information about the lifting the ban of cotton campaign on Uzbek cotton and what it is giving us in the future. So with your permission, then I start. Dear journalists, first of all, let me express my gratitude to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan and organizers of this event for providing an opportunity to talk about the reforms in Uzbekistan, achievements, and the adopted new development strategy. It also gives me great pleasure to welcome Japanese journalists and express my gratitude to them for their interest in Uzbekistan. So since the President Shavkat Mirziyoyev came to power in 2016, Uzbekistan has undertaken a large-scale program of socio-economic and social reforms and structural transformations in the country. Under their leadership, since the President Shavkat Mirziyoyev came to power in 2016, Uzbekistan has undertaken a large-scale program of economic and social reforms and structural transformations in the country. Under his leadership, a policy is being pursued to increase the accountability and transparency of the government, to expand regional cooperation, and to develop multifaceted interaction with foreign countries. The changes are already showing results. Uzbekistan is one of the few countries that avoided an economic downturn thanks to the decisive measures to overcome the consequences of the pandemic and the removal of barriers to domestic and international trade. And according to the World Bank, in 2021, Uzbekistan's gross domestic product showed a steady increase in household income and domestic investment. As a result of ongoing reforms, as well as the development of entrepreneurship, Uzbekistan's GDP grew by 7.4% last year. The country's GDP is expected to show the best dynamics in Central Asia and 5.6% in this year to 2022 and 5.8% in the next coming year. So, what is the development strategy of New Uzbekistan? Uzbekistan has adopted its 5-year development strategy for 2022 and 2026, consisting of 7 priority items and 100 goals in them, serving the country as a baseline for further reforms. This determines the priorities for continuing systemic reforms aimed at further improving the welfare of the people, transforming sectors of economy and accelerating the development of entrepreneurship based on taking into account the complex geopolitical situation and a detailed analysis of the results of the past stages of development in the country. Based on the new strategy, the country has identified target goals in concrete numbers and introduced the mechanisms of reaching those goals. So, what are those strategy lines? The first direction is building of a people's state through the development of a free civil society. A number of measures are planned to ensure the well-being of every citizen, regardless of his nationality, language, and religion. Most of the functions of the state will be transferred from the center to regions, served by development of e-government, increasing share of e-government services from current 54% to 100%, and expansion of public services coverage. So, in the first direction is like to build a people's state by elevating human dignity and furtherance of a civil society. There are several goals, but the main ones are introduction of a compact, professional, fair, high-performance public administration system, and further increase the role of chamber of the Oli Majlis, which is the parliament of Uzbekistan, and political parties to assure the consistent continuation of reforms in the country, and developing the e-government, I said. So the second one is to establish the principles of justice and the rule of law as the most fundamental and critical conditions for development in our country. It is ensuring justice and the priority of the law, the most fundamental and necessary condition for sustainable development. Therefore, the development strategy ensures reliable protection of property rights the policy of liberalization of criminal legislation will be consistently continued. In particular, a program will be developed to form a new image of law enforcement agencies so that they are perceived not as a punitive institution, but as an institution that protects human rights and freedom. And this third is development of a robust national economy that ensures rapid growth. And the goals there are increasing gross domestic product per capita in the next 5 years by 1.6 times, and per capita income by 2030 over $4,000 by ensuring stable high growth rates in sectors of economy, as well as creating a ground for joining the upper middle class income countries. And increase the volume of industrial production by 1.4 times by continuing the industrial policy to ensure the stability of the national economy and increase the share of industry in GDP, and providing an uninterrupted supply of electricity into the economy, and the active introduction of the green economy technologies in all sectors, increasing the economy's energy efficiency by 20%, and increasing the size of the digital economy by at least 2.5 times, making the primary economic driver of the economy. So, also regarding the environment problem, it will be possible to increase the energy efficiency in the country, as I said, by 20%, and reduction emissions of the harmful gases into the atmosphere by 10%. And there are plans also to attract 120 billion of US dollars into the country as the foreign investment, and including of which 70 billion is foreign direct investment. And the country put the goal to increase its exports by 2026 to 30 billion US dollars. And nowadays it's reaching roughly 20 billion. So for 5 years we are planning to increase every year by 2 billion US dollars. So the fourth direction is the focus will continue to be on the quality of education, which is the most important factor in the implementation of fair social policy and the development of human capital. And first of all, the coverage of preschool education will be expanded to 80%, which is now 67%, and up to 3 million payments from parents who send their children to non-state kindergartens and schools will be exempt from the income tax. So through the implementation of the National School Development Program, an additional 1.2 places for students will be created in the public education system, and in the Republic of Karakalpakstan, which is part of Uzbekistan, and the Khorasan region, a system will be introduced for free meals to students in grades 1-4. These two regions, the region of Karakalpakstan and Khorasan, are situated in the western part of Uzbekistan, which is, as you know, the drying up sea, Aral Sea region. So it is causing lots of problems with the health, with the education, and with the people's social welfare. So the government is taking steps to help that region in the first place. So also in this pursuing just and fair public policies and human capital development strategy, country wants to double the number of independent and innovative young people studying at the prestigious foreign universities, and improve the position of Republic of Uzbekistan in the Global Innovation Index, and enter the top 50 countries by 2030, and increasing the share of medicines and medical devices which are produced mostly in Uzbekistan, and also increase through incremental fiscal measures the monthly salaries of qualified doctors to the equivalent of at least $1,000. So these are the main goals in this and the fourth direction. So the fifth one is to ensure the elevation of spiritual values through developing those institutions tasked with their stewardship. So here in this line, we want to develop further the provision of information and library services to the general population, popularization of reading and realizing the national idea of nation of readers, and developing further the studying and promotion of the history of Uzbekistan and developing national cinematography capacity. As for the sixth approach is to approach global challenges through the lens of our national interests, which is to form effective mechanisms to combat extremism and terrorism, and creating new jobs and increase income that reduce poverty by at least twofold by the end of 2026, and establishing permanent and effective contacts with our compatriots in foreign countries through the established public fund Vatandash, and increasing the effectiveness of pandemic control. And over the past years of reforms in 2017 and 2021, significant work has been done to form and implement the country's updated foreign policy. The essence of the content of diplomatic activities have changed radically. And also in diplomacy, the environment should be the most important priority. Its essence lies in the promotion of international initiatives and implementation of multilateral programs for the protection of the environment. The requirement of the time is the formation of effective mechanisms to counter extremism and terrorism, especially in modern manifestations. One of the important priorities of Uzbekistan's foreign policy is the development of relations with Japan. And Japan is a long-standing, proven strategic and reliable partner of Uzbekistan, which supports the independence of Uzbekistan in its sovereignty and the consistent and systematic nature of reforms carried out in the country. And the historic visit of His Excellency President of Uzbekistan Shavkat Mirziyoyev to Japan in 2019 opened the new horizons for the strategic partnership between our countries. And this year we are celebrating the 30th year of the cooperation between, establishing the cooperation between diplomatic cooperation with Japan and Uzbekistan. And also it is the 20 years since the strategic partnership has been agreed to grow with Japan. So on this occasion, I have to notice that the visit of course, of the President, and later the visit of our Deputy Prime Minister to Japan in April this year, and the visit of His Excellency Mr. Hayashi to Uzbekistan, also showing the support of both sides for the further development of the relationship between these two countries. And the seventh direction is strengthening the security and defense potential of our country, pursuing an open, pragmatic, and active foreign policy, which goes to the strengthening the rights of citizens in the area of personal freedoms to receive and impart information, increasing the role of the country as an equitable international entity, and to further development of relations with our traditional partners, strengthening economic diplomacy, and prioritizing spending as geography of our foreign relations, and strengthening the activities of Uzbekistan in the framework of United Nations bodies and institutions, global and regional economic, financial, and humanitarian organizations. Achieving World Trade Organization's membership is also one of the goals of Uzbekistan, and deepening integration process with the Eurasian Economic Union. Improving the regulatory framework of foreign policy and foreign economic activity, as well as legal framework of international cooperation. And improving the system of services for citizens of Uzbekistan abroad by diplomatic missions and consular posts of the Republic of Uzbekistan abroad. These are the 7 main topics of new development strategy. And I want also to stop by a little bit on the cotton campaign, as I said. And in 2012, the cotton campaign issued a ban for Uzbek cotton due to the child labor and the forced labor used for the picking up the cotton and for the growing of the Uzbek cotton. But since 2016, when the new president came to power, he has been trying to change this system and making it more transparent and without any child labor. So only this year, on March 10, in the capital of Uzbekistan, the International Coalition of Cotton Campaign announced the end of the call for a global boycott of cotton from Uzbekistan. And at the opening of the first Tashkent International Investment Forum on March 24 this year, President Shavkat Mirziyoyev noted that forced labor, including child labor, has been completely eradicated in Uzbekistan, due to which Uzbekistan has been included in various blacklists for many years. And since the election of Mr. Mirziyoyev as the president of Uzbekistan, the coordinated and systematic work has begun in this direction, in particular on the implementation of roadmap of reforms developed by the government of Uzbekistan to end forced labor in the cotton industry and ensure the effectiveness of ongoing reforms. Products made from Uzbek cotton are highly valued by their quality, and it is expected that the end of the boycott will contribute to an increase in the volume of cotton imports from Uzbekistan to Japan. And we encourage the Japanese textile companies to work in Uzbekistan and establish businesses with Uzbek partners. And here, on this regard, I have to say that how it was reached is before all the cotton was belonging to the state, to the government. So, and since 2016, the government started taking the measures to get rid of this thing and give it all to the private sector. So the new system, the cluster system in agriculture, has started since 2018, and the clusters now are owning the cotton which they produce, and they make out of this cotton the fabrics and the ready garments and so on. So by this way, the clusters, the private sector is interested itself for growing cotton, and they're giving all the needed financial side to those who are growing it, the farmers. So this way the government is not interfering anymore to the cotton growing, and there is no forced and child labor there. And this is the main things I wanted to deliver, and thank you very much for your attention, and I'm ready to answer the ready to answer the questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for your presentation. It was very thorough. I would like to open the floor to question and answers. If you have any question, please raise your hand, and I will appoint you to ask. I received 2 questions online. So first one is from Eric Johnson of Japan Times. He's asking, with the international boycott of on Uzbekistan cotton lifted, what effect can we expect to see in terms of trade in the garment industry between Japan and Uzbekistan? What effect could this then have for wide trade arrangements between the 2 countries?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Of course, lifting the boycott of cotton campaign is giving us opportunities to work more with the brands. Before we were selling still our cotton yarn and fabrics and so on, the ready garments, by very, so to speak, cheap price, because of we could not reach the different brands because of this boycott. Now, without this boycott, even Japanese brands could enter the Japanese market, Uzbek market, and get that thing, but also our Uzbek cotton. Here, I have to notice that before coming here last week, I had a meeting with the Uniqlo, one of the biggest cotton importers and producers of the ready garments. They are also interested in working with Uzbekistan, but they require the BCI, the Best Cotton Initiative. Now, this year, I hope that 6 of Uzbek companies will be receiving the BCI, and from the end of the year, the BCI will be also available. BCI certificates will also available in Uzbekistan. So that way, those companies who are interested in Uzbek cotton and who are requiring BCI, they'll be also free to get the Uzbek cotton. And here also we are working with the textile companies of Japan, especially those who are interested in bringing the bed sheets for the Japanese hotels and so. So we are expecting that from the second half of this year, the increase of ready garments exports to Japan from Uzbekistan will be at least twice that we were having. Up to now, we're having around $500,000 exports only for the textile industry, and it was mostly the yarn. But now we're also, from this year, we're planning by the end of the year, we hope that it could reach at least 1 million, and the next year it will be more double. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I have another question actually from also Eric Johnson of Japan Times. He asked, according to the Japanese Foreign Ministry, Japan imported 1.69 billion yen worth of goods from Uzbekistan in 2021. Among the imports are fertilizer.
Yes.
And due to Russian invasion of Ukraine, according to his question, the Hokkaido Agriculture Federation announced that fertilizer costs for 11 Japanese agricultural products were being raised by 78%, the largest increase in over 3 decades. Did you discuss this raise with Japanese officials and its possible impact on imports of Uzbekistan-made fertilizer?
Thank you. Yes, you are right. Actually, the main the main share of Uzbek exports and Japanese imports from Uzbekistan is belonging to fertilizers. But unfortunately, due to the capacity of the production capacity of Uzbekistan, we are not making it more, because first of all, Uzbekistan is itself the mostly agricultural country. Like, we are almost 50%, 40% of the GDP is going to the agriculture. So we have to produce for the country as well. And the internal capacity of production is not allowing us to export more to Japan yet, even though we wish to export, but there is a limit of production, so that's why we don't have enough of the fertilizers to export to Japan. We are the main, I know that the main importer is Itochu company. We are talking to them as well, but still due to the limit of production, we cannot do it more now. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask next question until somebody else raise hand. Ambassador, you talked about 100 goals of your development strategy. I would like to hear about what is in your goals, in your plans for tourism. We know that Uzbekistan is a country with very important historical and cultural sites, and especially related to Islam. And it's a great destination for such sector. I would like to know more about if you have.
Yes.
any plans.
Thank you very much. Actually, you are right. Uzbekistan is the historic place. It's the Silk Road has been passing through Uzbekistan, and we have lots of places to show. And Uzbekistan is very much hospitable country. And due to the corona, we could not receive lots of tourists, even though since 2018-19 we were watching every year the twofold increase in the tourist flow to Uzbekistan. And that year, in 2019, we could increase the highest flow from Japan. That time it was around 25,000 people. They have reached Japan that year in 2019, and we were putting the extra planes from the different cities of Japan, not only from Tokyo. There were at that time some special charter flights organized to bring more of the Japanese tourists. And the government put, of course, it's also a priority goal to attract more of tourists. And by 2026, we're planning to have the 12 million tourists through the Travel Across Uzbekistan program. And among these 12 million, we are hoping that the 9 million would be the foreign tourists from different countries. So that's the main target for Uzbek government, to increase the number of flights to different countries. And from today I received a special note from Uzbekistan that from 10th of June, so the day after tomorrow, all the bans which were due to the corona pandemic are lifted, and so we are returning to pre-corona times in Uzbekistan.
Thank you. So just to follow up, you mentioned the airlines coming from all Japanese cities.
Yes.
Many Japanese cities. What is the main routes for reaching Uzbekistan?
Up to now, actually, we are using now the closest one is through Seoul, the Incheon, with the 1.5 hour transit in both ways. So it is very much convenient nowadays. But we're also working, and tomorrow I'm having the talks with our members of Uzbekistan Airways, so trying to establish again the direct flights trying to do it from August, even though we have already booked flights for September, but I want to persuade them to start in August, so during the top high peak of the season in September, October, there would be lots of Japanese visitors could go there. So if we could start it on August, of course it would give more opportunities for people to know about Uzbekistan. And it will be, I hope, once a week flight from Narita on Fridays. We'll still have slots there, and we'll try to restart it again from August.
Thank you. I'm expecting more questions, and online not yet. So let me also fill the gap.
Sure.
Now, the whole world is focusing on the situation in Ukraine.
Yes.
The war. So, did that affect your country, and in which way?
Actually, Uzbekistan, in this situation, it took the balanced and neutral position in this war, because we are traditionally close friends with Russia and Ukraine as well, and we still keep it. And today in the news, I also read that in Uzbekistan the new humanitarian aid was sending to Ukraine. So Ukraine was one of the economic partners for Uzbekistan, and Russia is also one of the partners. So we're interested in ensuring peace, stability, and sustainable development in vast region. And all disputes and disagreements that arise must be addressed solely on the basis of international law norms. And we hope that parties will soon find mutually acceptable ways to resolve the situation and prevent a further escalation. So, of course, the war did also touch us in terms of the economic side, since we again, as I mentioned, we are buying lots of stuff from Ukraine as well as from Russia. So those, the delivery terms of different machineries and so on from Russia and in Ukraine were postponed for the time being. And also on the Uzbekistan government is taking also the extra steps on the food stability for Uzbekistan, because we used to import grain and different food products from Ukraine and from Russia as well. So we are interested in stability in these both regions.
Thank you. Mr. I received a question from Thomas Ilven from his think tank Matthews. He asked, could you speak please about Uzbekistan's current energy situation, oil, gas and electricity? And given it is a close neighbor of Ukraine, what is the impact of the war and what is the position of the Uzbek government on that? And secondly, what is your current assessment of the situation in Afghanistan?
Okay, thank you. So about the position of Uzbek government, I just, I think, replied to this question. And about the energy sector, of course, we are producers of natural gas, and we are exporting gas also to Europe through Russia and to China and to our neighbors as well. And actually the energy sector is nowadays the most open sector for the foreign investment, and our government is interested in developing further the relationship with the other countries to develop the energy sector of Uzbekistan, especially with Arabic countries who are establishing the energy producing, the solar energy and the wind energy projects are done together. And with Japan, with the Sojitsu, we are trying, they are doing the totally like direct investment into the producing the heat energy using the gas turbines, the electricity in the Sirdarya region. So we are, because of the growing the number of the population of Uzbekistan, I have to mention that we are growing almost 800,000, almost 1 million people are added every year to the population of Uzbekistan. So it's around 2.2% of its population, and population grows every year. So now we have reached the 35 million populations rate, and also due to the increase in the startups, in the production of the different goods and materials, we are in need of of course, the energy, and that's why the government is paying much attention and tribute to invite the foreign companies in the energy sector, and as well as the PPP projects, like with the private sector and the government, they could do together. So we are again using this chance, I would invite more of the Japanese companies to come and visit Uzbekistan and see the potential of the investing into the energy sector of Uzbekistan. Thank you.
And about Afghanistan?
And Afghanistan, yes, about Afghanistan, I have to mention that since last year, August, when the Taliban came to power, I have to say that, well, Afghanistan is the closest neighbor. We are sharing the same borders with them, the same river, and the relationship between Afghanistan and Uzbekistan is going to the several thousand years. And we are very much interested in the peace in this country, even though the Uzbekistan is not recognizing yet the Taliban government, but because of they are our neighbors, we were the first country which delivered the humanitarian aid, around 30,000 tons of the different food and grains and other stuff for the living. In October 2021, we were the first country who could bring the humanitarian aid to the Afghan people in 2021. So, and up to now, we are trying to contact them and trying to establish the good relationship with the Afghan people as well, because we are interested in using the Afghan corridor for transportation as well, for transportation of Uzbek products through Afghanistan to Karachi port, and from using the Karachi port for delivering our products to the different part of the world. And I have to mention that Uzbekistan is double landlocked country, and so in order to establish this route, we are working also to build a new trans-Afghan railway, and Afghanistan is interested also in building this railway through Afghanistan to Pakistan. So we're having some part of it from Uzbekistan to Mazar-e-Sharif of Afghanistan, and from there on we are now talking about building a new railway in order to reach the Karachi port. And from February of this year, we opened this route for the trucks now, and within 4 days, I have to mention that within 4 days, these trucks are safely reaching Tashkent from Karachi, and from Tashkent they go and from Karachi, Tashkent. So vice versa, this is taking 4 days for every side. So up to now there are no incidents, and we are glad that Taliban government is supporting us in this new trade route.
Thank you. All right, I will answer that question.
Okay.
What about, you mentioned in the interim that you lifted also the rule on the mask regarding Corona. So what is the situation in Uzbekistan about Corona, and how is it now? Thank you.
Actually, as for Corona, government was taking all the necessary steps to prevent it in different places, and also to fight with the Corona, and government spent lots of money on it. And since this year, we are watching the decrease in the numbers of infected with Corona. So since I'm watching it since last February, it is for 35 million population, every day's rate was around 40, 50 diseased, so it's almost zero. So that's why from March of this year, the masks were not obligatory for people. And nowadays, as I told you, from 10th of June, all the prohibitions and all the bans which were issued during the Corona, they were lifted, and we came back again to pre-Corona time. So Of course, up now we're having maybe less than 50 people every day, but again, it's controllable, under the control of the government and the medical doctors. So there is no like worry about the increase of Uzbekistan of corona in Uzbekistan yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question, please, from the floor? Right. Yes, Siva, please, person.
My name is Kurzi, I'm an associate member. Could you give us some general idea about the economy between Japan as a whole? We heard a lot about the cotton now, but how can Japan and how can your country increase the let's say the possibilities of getting closer together? That's my first question. The second question is, to what extent has your country taken over refugees from Ukraine? Is that already happening, or how is this standing at this time? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me start maybe from the second part of your question about the Ukrainian refugees. And as I told you, Uzbekistan and the Ukraine are friendly nations to each other, and we are tied up since the Soviet era with Ukraine. And lots of Ukrainian people also living in Uzbekistan. The Ukrainian nationality people are living, and they have married to Uzbek people. They are having families, and they're working in Uzbekistan without any differentiation between the nations in Uzbekistan. So those people who were flying from Ukraine, they were freely entering Uzbekistan up to now, and they are having no stopping at any border of Uzbekistan. And also, to your knowledge, I have to say that lots of IT people came from Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. They flew to Uzbekistan because of they were the IT parks and so on. They're good condition for them to work, so they flew to Uzbekistan and start their operations in Uzbekistan. And as for the civilians, unfortunately, I do not have any detailed number of the flow of civilians, but I know that we brought, of course, around 2,000 of our citizens from Ukraine to Uzbekistan, but also the Ukraine, as far as I know, lots of Ukrainians who have their relatives in Uzbekistan, who have their friends, they were free to come to Uzbekistan and live there. So, but unfortunately, I do not have the detailed number. And as for the relationship, economic relationship between Japan and Uzbekistan, of course, we are strategic partners, and we are trying our best to increase the trade between our countries and the relationship in economic sphere. I have to notice that till last year, there were only around 33 Japanese companies which were operating in Uzbekistan as the foreign registered capital, or as the new company and so on with the foreign capital. So I have to say that by this year the number increased twice. So despite the pandemic, despite the corona, and due to the good and beneficial conditions in Uzbek economy, the Japanese private businesses, even though the small companies, start investing in Uzbekistan. My strategy was also, since I came last year, try to deliver the message to small and medium enterprises because their movement, their going would be much easier and decision making would be much easier to go to Uzbekistan rather than for the big companies. Of course, big companies are also needed, but I took a strategy also to work more with the small and medium enterprises, so that way they could go and see Uzbekistan and see the opportunities for investment to Uzbekistan. So the increase in the number of Japanese companies in Uzbekistan shows that the interest of Japanese people in Uzbek economy is growing. This is the first. And the second, they have a trust now to Uzbek banks and they put their money in Uzbek banks. They are buying the properties there and also trying to establish the different businesses like producing some chairs, also the making some Japanese restaurants and so on. And from Japan, we want mostly of the technologies which the Japanese people are using. And also we are the main part of the imports to my country is also the machinery from Japan. So this makes the highest part of imports to Uzbek economy. And as for the exports, as I told you, it was mostly the fertilizers, the main part, and then of course the textile products. And since last year, we see the increase in the imports of the dried fruits. So the Uzbek dried raisins became the brand nowadays, and I know that lots of companies are interested in bringing in the Uzbek dried fruits. So last year's results we want to double this year because it is giving more opportunities, and if we have more of the straight flights, direct flights, then we could, due to the distance, it's very hard to wait maybe 40 or 50 days for receiving the container. So if we have the direct flights, of course we could use this thing also. So it is increasing year by year. So of course the share of imports to Uzbekistan is much higher than the share of exports to Japan. But it gives us more opportunity to work and to work on the exports of Uzbekistan and to bring lots of good stuff from Uzbekistan to Japan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. I have a follow-up question from Tom O'Sullivan about Afghanistan.
Okay.
You mentioned that your country hasn't recognized Taliban yet.
Yes, yes.
So what are the reasons? And when do you think you could recognize the Taliban?
About that, I cannot say that we will recognize the Taliban today or tomorrow. It's actually a matter of time when the world, the other countries also will come to this and they will look at it and they will see the policy which is taken by the Taliban, if it will be fitting the interests of Uzbekistan and the neighboring countries as well, then of course I'm sure we'll be going for it, but I think it will take some time.
Right. I think we have 5 minutes to go, and we could have another question. I would like to take advantage of having the ambassador here. So maybe I could ask also about, there are now a lot of financial sanctions against Russia by many countries. And I'm wondering if such, and also the banning, and also the airlines are banned from the Russian airspace and vice versa. So any impact on your country by these sanctions? I mean, secondary impact.
Yeah, of course. As I said, there are impact on economic side on the delivery and of the different machinery from Russia and from Ukraine as well. But the bans for the flights and so on, they are not regarded to Uzbekistan. And we are still flying through Russia and over Russia and to Europe and different countries as well. So it is not giving an impact. But it is giving us some more opportunity, I think, to develop more of our international connection flights. Those countries which are not flying anymore to Russia, so they could fly now taking through Uzbekistan. It is giving some opportunity, I think, for us.
Right. I think we reached the end of the session. I would like to extend to you 1 year honorary membership. It's our tradition to give our guest speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Ambassador, and I would like you to come again.
And thank you very much for your attention and for your hospitality here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
Thank you.